to pull up a prayer that I found that I wanted to begin our meeting with. And then after prayer, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and let people in the waiting room, okay? Okay. So we want to begin tonight the way we begin everything at Sacred Heart, which is in prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. A prayer for the diversity of races and cultures. O God, you created all people in your image. We thank you for the astonishing variety of races and cultures in this world. Enrich our lives by ever widening circles of friendship, and show us your presence in those who differ most from us, until our knowledge of your love is made perfect, in our love for all your children, through your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. So tonight, just really happy to have three folks who are going to be our speakers, and they are all part of our community, past and present. And actually, once you're part of the community, you're still part of the community. So that's for you, Trey. Okay. So tonight we're going to have Mr. Chad Steele, who is a current parent of 2 children at Sacred Heart. And I'm going to let them kind of do their own bio, but just introducing, giving you a framework here. And then Miss Victoria Chester, who is currently a middle school social studies teacher for us, who also is a Sacred Heart graduate. And then Mr. Trey Hunt, who is a Sacred Heart graduate and currently in college. And his mom is the receptionist extraordinaire, Mrs. Jean Hunt, who everyone thinks is my sister because we have the same name. Everybody names their kids the same first name, right? So anyway, we're really excited to have all members of our community here. And just the format for the evening is that we will hear from all of our speakers, and then we're going to open it up to discussion and questions and answers. And so we thought we'd let everyone speak first. And so if you want to, put any notes in the chat, please, we can go back to them. Or if you want to just write something down on a notepad and save it for when we're at that point in the meeting tonight. So again, really excited. And I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, Mr. Chad Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Constantino, and thanks everybody for being here. My name is Chad Steele. I'm the Senior Vice President of Communications for the Baltimore Ravens. I've been with the Ravens. This is, my 20th year now. Proud parent of 2. I have a child in 1st grade and a child in 5th grade. And so this is important to me. The JEDI Council is important to me. The community at large is very important to me. So I'm here tonight, and I'm honored to be here with Ms. Chester and with Trey Hunt to tell our story a little bit. And so I'm gonna go first. I'll tell you a little bit about my story growing up as a biracial child, and then Ms. Chester will go, and then Trey will go. But Ms. C, do we have the video that we can
Yep.
show? I want to give you guys a little bit of a quick background. There's a video that NFL Films was nice enough to do on our family a couple years ago, and kind of give you a little bit of a background of our family.
Can you guys see the screen with Dylan?
Yes.
Okay.
Colonel.
You call him Colonel?
Uh-huh.
You don't call him Granddad or Grandpa?
No, we just call him Colonel.
Can I put my hand on his knee? Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay.
Power move.
Oh, it is?
It's okay with him. It's okay with him.
It's a power move, really?
An Army colonel knows a thing or two about power. Colonel Gary Steele has a powerful story.
Mrs. Knoll, when you mute, we can't hear the sound.
It truly was a whiteout.
Every single one of them is a 12th man for the team.
My dad and my godfather were stationed at West Point in 1942. All-black unit. What their job was to train the horses and then to take them down to where the cadets rode. For them to move around the academy and to There's nobody that looks like them at all. For them to be in the stands September 1966, the first game that was starting at tight end, for those two Buffalo Soldiers, that was a special moment. Starting the first. I just can't imagine what their feelings were.
He's the first black football player at West Point. Dad is so humble, he would never talk about it. We'd ask him about games. It's like, yeah, you know, I played football and I enjoyed it.
Truly, I was just another player.
Before he was an Army colonel, Gary Steele was an Army tight end, excelling for 3 years as a starter. Although he never played in the NFL, he was drafted in the 17th round by the Detroit Lions and made one memorable play that will forever live in Army football lore.
Cal was top-ranked team in the nation. My dad caught a long touchdown pass to beat him.
Steele grabs it from one defender, skips out of the grasp of another, and scampers into the end zone. A 62-yard pass play. Army dramatically rallies to beat California 10-7.
And I said, hey, Dad, why don't you ever tell me these things? And he said, what does that have to do with me being your father?
Colonel and Mona Steele raised 3 children with the help of an old Army adage.
Do you know it?
Do I know the Cadet Prayer? My kids know the Cadet Prayer. We all know, yes, Lord, help me to choose the harder right, not the easier wrong, and to never tell a half-truth when the whole can be one. And I think I got it exactly. I'm sure my dad will let me know.
Make us choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong, and never be content with a half-truth when the whole can be one. As long as I can remember, that was in our lives. Something would happen in the house. Sage would blame me, I would blame Courtney, and my parents would call me in and, okay, what happened? Well, I don't know. Chad, harder right, easier wrong. Okay, I broke the vase.
Our first grader told her first lie in her first grade class. We had to have a whole long talk with her when she came on that night. We said, remember how the colonel always says, harder right, easier wrong. Like you won't get in trouble if you tell the truth. You got to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong.
If you could give one defining trait for your family, what would it be?
Integrity. It's just about being an honest person and being a good person.
The Cadet Prayer is based on the fact that things get hard. And they did for Colonel and Mona right from the beginning.
We ended up getting married at West Point. We were young and very naive. My parents pretty much disowned me and didn't come to the wedding or anything like that. Mom and Dad won't talk to her because she married a black man. They were in Panama and she called her mom to say, I'm gonna have a baby, and her mom hung up the phone. Because of my parents and all, I didn't count on other people. It was just, I knew I could count on Gary.
There were many things that were said about what a relationship with a black husband would be and how you would end up being treated, etc. And so how are her parents going to know she's okay? So I believe it was once a month. And once a month, I would pen a letter. Here's where we are, here's what's going on, here's what we're doing together. Never received a return letter.
They were always really nice letters. I mean, I questioned them every month. I'd say, I don't know why you're doing that. I do not know why you're doing this because they'll never write you or anything. And he'd say, they need to know you're okay. All right.
It was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It was to prove a point. I am taking good care of this young woman. I am doing the right thing. When we finally did get together and I had the opportunity to meet her father, he says, Gary, in his voice, he says, Gary, I'd like to just forget this and move forward from here. And I guess there was a little bit of a burr under my saddle there. And I said to him, I said, Duke, I said, I can never forget the last 6 years because I had to live this. But this is day one of our relationship, and we go forward from here.
That face that is usually covered by her phone has finally made an appearance. That face wouldn't be doing that if you weren't staying at a very
Okay.
Did it come back up or did it cut off?
I thought didn't have sound at all. You're good. Was that the end of it or no? That was not the
No,
end.
but you know what? I think we got the gist of it. That's okay.
Sorry, it skipped to an ad. I wasn't really sure.
Yeah, no. That's all right. But no, so you know, like I said, I want to talk a little bit about my family story. You saw a little bit of it there. My parents were married in 1971. They had 3 children. My older sister Sage was born in Panama. My little brother Courtney, who was born in Belgium, and I was born in West Point. I was the only kid born in the United States. A little bit of a middle child syndrome, but you know, my parents, as you saw, my dad is of West African and Caribbean descent, from Trinidad and Barbados, and my mom is the daughter of Irish Italian immigrants, and we're very proud of all the cultures that we have in our lives. And you saw the challenges that my parents had in their marriage for the first 6 years when her parents would not speak to her because she married a Black man. And, you know, it was hard, and it started with that, and then it continued. And even the institutional racism that they felt continued throughout the years. And even I remember them telling stories of when I was born, and the medical professionals there saying, "Hey, you have to choose a race," and they didn't want to. There was no mix, there was no other. It was black or white, and we wouldn't choose a race because we're proud of both sides of that. And they continued to experience things like that throughout their lives. And as we moved all across the world, we understood that you know, it was just us. We had to be together. We had to be strong because there were so many outside forces that were trying to tear us apart. And a number of times, you know, I struggled with my identity when I was younger. My sister and I talk about this. You know, everybody says, "Hey, you are identified. You know, we're going to identify you as Black, whether it's at work, at school, whatever it is." And Sage would always say, well, no, I'm not Black because I'm pretty sure that my white mom was there when I was born. And so we understand how blessed we are because we're the products of 2 worlds. We're the products of multiple worlds, and how lucky are we to have that? And so many times in my life, different words, different words that I won't say here, but so many different words that are thrown at me from different races. From Black, from white, it didn't matter. I really didn't have a place to fit in. And I felt the racism from both sides. And it had a really profound effect on me because there are so many, if you are Black, if you are white, if you are Asian, if you're Latino, whatever you are, you kind of have a community outside of your home that you can retreat to. If you're being mistreated, you can go and you can retreat to that community, and you guys can get together and be stronger. Well, growing up, there weren't many biracial kids that I knew, so I didn't have that. And there were a lot of times where I was lost. You know, I felt lost at school. I felt lost at work, felt lost in college. And it wasn't just the loss of, you know, hey, I don't know where I am. I don't know where I'm going. It was in my soul as a person. I was drifting because I didn't have that anchor. I had the anchor at home, but every time I would leave my house, I didn't have that anchor. And I wasn't accepted at many places. And I still carry the wounds from that to this day. Almost on a daily basis, I struggle with feeling less than. You know, some of them call it imposter syndrome. And should I have this family that I have? Should I have this job that I have? Should I be in the position that I'm in? I really struggled with that. And I understand that it was easier for me at some points because as a military brat, we traveled quite often, and we were moving, and I had to pick up and move to new cities and new countries, and I had a chance to reestablish myself and try to ingrain myself into a new community and new culture. So it was a little easier for me, rather than some of the children that I know that are stuck in one spot and they can't really escape and find a community. But I really, when we moved back from Belgium, we were living in Belgium, we moved back to the United States. We moved overseas when I was very young. And we came back when I was in middle school, approaching high school. And I had never really felt extreme racism until we moved back to the States. And that was shocking to me because we were the melting pot. And this is, we're the greatest country in the world. And I live in these European countries, and then I come back to the States, and that's when I really felt it, and it took a toll on me as an adolescent. And I struggled communicating that. I struggled even communicating it with my family. And I was very withdrawn, and I couldn't deal with those feelings heads on. And, I know now through those experiences how important it is, as parents, for us as community leaders, to support young people from all walks of life. There's no way I would be where I am today without the support of my family, particularly my parents. And as I grew up, some of the people that grew to accept me, there was no way that I would be there. I still have some of those scars from when I was growing up, and it wasn't just from the children. It was from parents. It was from staff at schools. It was all over. And we moved to Carmel, Indiana. I went to Carmel Clay. It was a junior high. There were 1,500 kids in the school. I was one of, I think, 3 minorities. And it was as bad as I've ever felt it. I felt the sting of racism. I felt, it was physical abuse. It was mental abuse. It was probably the hardest year of my life there, because I was quote unquote put in that box of Black. And then we moved a year later, my sophomore year, we moved on to Fort Benjamin Harrison, which is closer to Indianapolis. And I went to a school that was probably 70 to 75% Black. And when I went in there, I realized that I didn't fit in there either. And I felt that same sting because of my mom, because I was half white. I wasn't accepted by those children either. And so that's when I talked about, when you feel adrift because you don't have that community outside of your home that you can really latch on to and feel a part of. When I finally did start feeling acceptance was when we moved to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, and it was halfway through my junior year. And there were so many military families there. There were a number of races and religions and cultures. And so I felt that acceptance a little bit because of that. But it was also because of my athletic prowess. I was coming into my own as an athlete, coming into my own on the basketball court. And I started having those friends. I started having those friendships. But I believe I wouldn't have had those friends. I wouldn't have been as popular as I was there if it wasn't for me being an athlete and being able to win a game on the court. And I struggled with that, as I grew older and as I'm thinking about it, it was, I wanted friends, I wanted people to like me. I wanted people to respect me because I'm a good person. And I struggled with that. And as I would go through, even in high school, and as I was starting to be recruited to play basketball in college, there were many places that would send me applications, and I would fill them out, and I would go in there, and they would say, okay, well, what's your race? Black, white. I said, well, I would either check both, or I would check nothing. I wouldn't say anything. And they said, hey, you have to choose. And I said, well, that's not the school I'm going to go to then. I'm not going to be put in that box. I felt so many times that I had to wear a mask on different days, depending on who I was with and where I was going. And I've learned it's a bit of a blessing. As I've gotten older, I've understood that the struggles that I went through have helped shape me and to help me to be what I am today. And particularly in my job, being biracial it has helped me because, again, you're talking about a locker room where there are so many different races, so many different creeds, and I can move seamlessly in between them and talk to them about experiences. But growing up, I felt so alone. I didn't have that. In my house, I had it, but anytime I stepped out of that house, I didn't have it, and I struggled. And I realized sometimes you have to go it alone, and it made me stronger, and it made me care a lot less about what other people thought about me. But as I said, now in my 40s, as a husband and as a father and as somebody that takes pride in the community, I still carry those scars. And my foundation are my parents. And you saw the beginnings of that video, and you saw where that came from, and that's important. And societal and cultural changes have taken over the past few years, and being biracial is more accepted. But I still see that stigma in our communities. I see it with my children, with questions that they come home with, or from things that they heard at school or on sports. We're getting better as a society, but it's still there. And it's incumbent upon us as parents and as leaders, to, no matter what race, creed, culture, no matter what it is to be accepting and to teach our children the right way to deal with these sorts of things. And my wish tonight is for everybody to leave with an understanding the struggles that can arise simply by being who you are. And as a young man growing up and not really having that identity outside of my home, how much that still affects me to this day. And to get the young children to understand, that you're going to face it, you're going to be disliked. It's going to be lonely at times, but there's a place for you in this world. There's a place for all of us in this world, and I'm living proof of that. And understanding as parents, you're going to be the strongest foundation that your kids have. We're going to be the strongest foundation that this community has. And we have to together, not just our kids, but it's incumbent upon me with my children's friends, with their classmates, with their teammates, to set the example and to let people know how important it is to be accepting. And they're going to look to us to set the example. And as I said, I work in the NFL, and I think many of you have seen throughout the year this year with the social justice struggles, the stenciled words on fields and everywhere that it takes all of us. And I really believe that it's so poignant, and it does. It's not just in the NFL; it's in our communities. It takes all of us to move forward as a society and understand how it affects us. And Mrs. Chester's going to share her story, and Trey's going to share her story. And my story is one, and there are so many of these stories, but to listen and to understand and try to help move forward for the next generation is the most important thing we can do. And the last thing I want to share with you, if people are book readers, there's a great book that I read when I got out of college, and I just read it a couple years ago, and it's called Life on the Color Line by Gregory Williams Howard. And it's a story about a young man in rural Virginia in the 1950s. He was a white boy, and his father was Italian, and had a great privileged life. And after a few years, his parents got divorced. His father lost his job, and he had to move the family to his family. And he was born in Muncie, Indiana. And on the train, he told Gregory and his siblings that he wasn't Italian. He was in fact Black, and they're going to live with their Black family. And so he wrote about the rift in our society, and coming up as an adolescent, as a white boy in Virginia, and then moving and being a Black boy in Muncie, Indiana. And it's a true story, and it was so poignant because there were so many things that I identified with. Sadly, that when I was reading that in the late 90s and early 2000s, and now it was set in the 1950s, but I still see a lot of those scars to this day. So I just, I just pray and want to let everybody know that we are the foundation. We're the strongest foundation that our children are going to have, and it's incumbent upon us to help move it forward. So I appreciate your time, and with that, I'll turn it back over to Mrs. Knoll.
Well, I have a request to finish the video, so I have it queued up.
Okay.
Watch the last 2 minutes.
Okay.
I hear it's very good. Okay.
Being Steele means being strong, especially when the battle is life and death. He is a prostate cancer survivor and is currently battling multiple myeloma.
It's hard to see your hero hurting.
He wanted to be the first person to ever give me flowers. So I turned 16 and roses were delivered to the door, and it was my dad. He's my guy, still is. I mean, no one takes the place of your dad, right?
He's our rock. Everything that he's gone through, we all get together and he's thanking us for being there.
They took out 2 vertebrae.
C6 and C7.
A tumor the size of
A little bit bigger than a golf ball.
Yeah.
Back.
We won't show you the scars, although it's kind of cool. Let me know if you want to see them. It's like I didn't know if I was going to make it to 71. I just want to be around you guys.
This is the checkers game where grandson and granddad will bond.
I just want to live.
Stand and then you get back in the way. All right.
It's following directions pretty well, huh, Chad?
Yeah. Too bad he didn't shave very well.
We really try to deal with everything with a sense of humor, especially when it's this scary. I'd love to see my dad really living.
It was down to the last freaking second.
Colonel will always have his faith, his family, and Mona.
My dad's the colonel. We call my mom the general. She does what needs to get done. The things that we don't see when he's home and he's struggling, she does, and she picks him up when he needs it.
My parents are amazing, amazing people. We have great examples to show how we should be as spouses and as parents.
I appreciate you finishing that, Mrs. Knoll, and just to kind of put a point on it, when I say that we are the foundation, I get emotional seeing that every time. But it's important, and that's what I'm talking about, the foundation. That's what we need to be for our children and for their classmates. So that's just what I hope we can all get out of that. So sorry for getting emotional, but it's obviously an important topic to me.
Well, thank you. That was beautiful, and so much we could unpack from that right now. But we're going to move on and come back. But thank you, Mr. Steele, so much for sharing your story. Let's go to middle school teacher and former SHG student, Miss Victoria Chester.
Hi, I'm Victoria. So yes, I was a graduate of Sacred Heart School. I graduated in 2008. So it seems like a long time ago for me, but I mean, some of my teachers are my coworkers now, so that's a little weird. But growing up biracial it's interesting, and I can say the first time that I actually truly noticed it was when I was at Sacred Heart. I was in 2nd grade and I was just sitting in my classroom. We were about to have lunch and I forgot my lunchbox at home. So my mom, who worked at home at the time, came back to Sacred Heart, we're only 10 minutes around the corner, and brought my lunch to school. Whoever was at the front desk was like, yeah, you can just hand deliver it right there to the classroom. So my mom came in with my lunch and, hey mom, how's it going? She drops it off. And then all of a sudden there's this boy, he comes out in the background. He goes, is that your mom? And I was like, yeah, why? And he's like, she doesn't look like you. Are you adopted? And then I started to kind of piece together, like, okay, why is he asking me that? This is my mom. This is what I've known for 7 years of my whole young life. And then I looked in the mirror when I got home later that day, and I said to myself, I don't look like my mom. My mom has lighter skin than mine. My skin's tan. Why is my mom's skin white? Why do I not look like her? So that was when I really started to kind of think about it in terms of, as much as a 7-year-old can think about, being biracial. But ever since that moment, I noticed it. I notice it everywhere I go, that I have different skin color from my classmates. I even notice it still today if I'm walking down the street, and I see a group of, white kids, and I'm walking down the street with my white boyfriend, and I'm the only person who is a different color skin, it's something that stands out. And people who, are, aren't people of color, black, brown, etc., you don't even think about that probably. You just kind of, there you are. And I think it adds a whole extra layer to what it means, particularly of being biracial. When Chad was saying you kind of don't know if there's sides, which side, are we supposed to act like? Are we supposed to act different when we're around Black people? Are we supposed to act different when we're around white people? Where is that middle ground, if there is one? So just a quick background, my dad's Black and my mom is white, and they married in 94, and it was actually 5 years after my older sister was born. She's my half sister, so my mom was married before to a white man, so my older sister is fully white. That also started to come to me as well when I was 8 or 9, and was thinking, she doesn't look like me either. There's something going on. My parents never really kind of explicitly came out and said, yeah, she's your half sister. I'm not sure why, but it really started ever since 7, 8, 9 years old. I felt out of place. I was thinking about this presentation earlier today when I was trying to figure out what are some things that, I can share. Really weird thing that I did in 7th grade. I remember I was sitting in Sacred Heart Middle School, and I counted every single girl in my class who had straight hair. And that's something that maybe not normal people think about, but my hair is curly. And there was only one other girl in my grade who had curly hair, and it was, this fluffy curly, mess, kind of like mine was. And it just put me so out of sync with everyone else. I always was thinking about, just do people like me that I look different? I was always so sad in middle school and high school, and I would hear about, these boys having crushes on these girls, and, none of these boys like me, and why not? Why don't I look like these white girls? Why can't my skin just be a little bit lighter so people will notice me in a way that I want to be noticed, not just noticed because I'm different. And it was just things like that. It was really hard, especially for being a girl and growing up and constantly already as a girl being faced with, you have to look like this. This is beauty. Looking at, magazine covers with, tall, beautiful blonde women. Obviously we're more diverse now, but, seeing that just, it hurt. It really hurt. And then high school comes along, you're checking all those boxes off for colleges, and a lot of them made you check off one box for your race, Black or white. There wasn't really many that said 2 or more races the way there are now with a lot of those applications for jobs in schools. And I would pick white. I selected white every time because that was what I gravitated more towards. I wanted to be white. I thought that being white completely was easier than being either half or Black. I totally pushed aside my identity as a Black person for years. I didn't want to acknowledge it. I didn't want to be around people who were Black. I did not hang out with my dad's side of the family at all. I just wanted to disassociate myself with being Black, because I've read and learned that it's hard. And I think that was honestly one of the hardest things that I had to stem away from as an adult, when I realized that this is who you are, and I'm not sure, I think I would assume that a lot of biracial people experience that as well, where it's okay, this is who you are. And there is these times when you really, there is a, you want to code switch, you want to talk this way to one group, this way to one group. Oh, these people will get this joke because of Black culture or white culture or whatever it is. And when I slowly started to come out of that in late college and in my young adulthood, it was really hard. I finally, in only 4 years ago, like 2017, did I finally look at myself in the mirror and said, you're Black, and that's okay. That was 4 years ago. I was 23. So 23 years of my life was me just kind of suppressing who I am. And that hurts really bad. And I think that biracial people do cling to one side or the other. I clung to the white side because of the community of Sacred Heart that I grew up in. I was absolutely astonished last year when I started at Sacred Heart, and it was like so diverse. I couldn't believe it. It was nothing like how it was when I went there. And I think that with the diversity growing in America, I think 2049, they said that it would be half of either, multiracial or Black and brown groups, it would be half. And then 50% white. I think they said by 2049 that would be the case. So, more and more every day, I'm seeing more people that look like me, more people that look like my younger sister, friends and family that I know of. And it's comforting to finally be in a world where, one, you can accept yourself for who you are. And then two, for being able to find groups or people who do accept you. And, the phrase, color doesn't matter. That's not true. Everyone sees color. It's the first thing you see when you look at somebody. When you look at me, I have tan skin, I have black hair, like period. Everyone sees it, and that's okay. But it's the idea of finding yourself and understanding and saying it's okay. And that was so hard for me. But now, since 2017, I have felt so much more confident in myself. I felt confident in the way I look, the way I dress, the way I speak, the way I just present myself as a whole. And it really took a lot, and you need support. And, I have a great family, great friends and coworkers and my significant other. And, they accept me for who I am. But the main thing that I believe that all biracial children probably have to deal with is that it's going to come from within. And that's kind of my experience of growing up biracial. And it may be similar to others, or it may not be, but I think it's different. Everyone has a different story, but I think that it all has the same theme. So I really appreciate everyone for listening, to my story. And, I'm just one of many, but, I'm happy to be, representing biracial kids, and, my kids will be, representing that too, in future generations of little me's and things like that. So thank you very much for letting me speak about this.
Thank you, Victoria. Did you have something you wanted to screen share or no? Did you?
Oh, I do have a picture of me at Sacred Heart.
We want to see it.
Hang on. This is a picture of me when I was at Sacred Heart. So one thing with biracial, specifically biracial girls who have white moms, the hair is very difficult to maintain and to fix. And, that's not, you can't say, oh, that's the mom's fault. It's just that, it's different. And I slowly figured out how to fix my hair, but that was first day of first grade at Sacred Heart. So yeah, that's like a thing that, oh, you should take them to the black barber shop, or take them to a black hairdresser. But that's the thing that sometimes white mothers, even though they have, a biracial, daughter, they might not even think about that. They just want to put their girl's hair up in a bun and say, hey, you look great, go to school. But yeah.
Thank you again. Comments coming in, just for sharing so much of yourself with us. So Trey Hunt is, we're going to hear from Trey next.
Good evening. Yeah, my name's Trey. I graduated from Sacred Heart in 2015. I went on to graduate from Loyola Blakefield in 2019, and I'm currently a student at Michigan State. I'm going to be reading you guys an essay I had to write in 2018. It was for my college application. It's basically about, they give you the parameters of writing something that's unique to you or something you would like to express. So I did, and I titled it Black and White. Because I am biracial, I never understood racism growing up. My parents raised me to believe that the only differences between people are the choices they make and the way they treat others. At my elementary school and middle school, I never had to encounter racism firsthand because of the diversity of the school and the fact that my dad, who is Black, was the basketball coach. It wasn't until I entered high school that I felt the true effects of racism. In order for you to understand what I've experienced, I must mention the fact that I have never been racially profiled as Black. The only way people would know I was Black is if I told them. And since no one thought I was Black, many kids were not afraid to say their true feelings around me. For the first time in my life, I heard what ignorant people had to say behind the backs of people like my friends, my family, and myself. They're insulting me to my face without even knowing it. I was angry, confused, but even worse, I became self-conscious. My perspective of people changed. I felt that being Black would affect how I was treated, and I became afraid. I was afraid that I would never be considered good enough because of my skin color. This feeling of being less reached its peak during the winter of my junior year, when a racial threat was made against all Black students. A message was found etched on one of the bathroom stalls saying, "No niggers better be at school on Thursday." This message shut down the school, and the FBI conducted an investigation that has yet to be resolved. This whole event made me feel that I did not belong, and I truly considered transferring. About 2 months later, I had the opportunity to write about the first Black student, Kenneth Montague, to attend my high school. He told me, "You cannot let your race overshadow your abilities and your intelligence." Mr. Montague doesn't know that his words has made a huge impact on my life. I understand now that the race that he was referring to was a negative view of race and a perspective I began to adopt. I realized that this racial and internal conflict that he was referring to had a name called double consciousness. In defining myself, I was influenced by how others perceived me. I have learned that my identity has nothing to do with words etched out of fear on a bathroom stall. I have learned that my identity is not limited to words and colors. I have learned that who I am is not so black and white. Before I finish, I just wanted to make it clear that this isn't about Loyola Blakefield, but because they gave me a great experience, and the 4 years I spent there really shaped me into the man I am today. But this is just the world we live in right now. And this was my first time experiencing something like this. So I'd like to leave you with a few thoughts before I conclude. First, be careful what you say to people. You never know how your words can affect someone else. Second, don't be afraid to interact with someone because they're different from you. Be open to different points of views. And finally, be proud of who you are and where you came from. Thank you.
Thank you, Trey. I just have to pitch Sacred Heart. Look at these wonderful graduates. Victoria and Trey, thank you again. The honesty and the sharing of your experiences is just overwhelming. So I want to open this up to our folks who are in the audience tonight. And this is hard because there are 84 of us. So I think you're just going to need to unmute yourself because we're taking up several pages on the screen. And just unmute yourself and fire away with any questions you might have.
We do have one question in the chat.
Okay.
It says, how do we prepare our children for these experiences? I feel protective over my children from past negative experiences.
You know, I'll speak first. I think it's through things like this. You know, the fact that we had Ms. Constantino, would you say 85 participants on this?
Yeah.
It's through things like this in continuing to have dialogue with your children. You know, I had the strongest foundation on earth in my family, but there were times where I retreated and I wouldn't share the things that I was going through with my family. Some of it was because I was embarrassed. Some of it is because I was upset and I felt it was my fault. So it's through constant dialogue, having conversations with your kids, asking them questions about their friends and what's going on. Because look, you want to do everything you can to protect your children. I want to do everything I can to protect my children, but I know when they leave the house that I'm not going to be able to be there at every second. So it's having that open dialogue with them, supporting them, letting them know how much they're loved, and letting them know that there is no difference between them and anyone else. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what race they are. It doesn't matter religion. It doesn't matter creed. It doesn't matter anything. It's just understanding that a friend is a friend. And as our family mantra always says, choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. But having those discussions with your kids is the most important thing. Even when they don't want to have them, even when you have to force it out of them, having that open dialogue is huge.
I also agree with Mr. Steele that dialogue is everything. Just keeping your kids more informed why people act a certain way, and just understanding that ignorance towards you sometimes reflects the person more than it reflects you, and just understanding that yeah, pretty much that, just understand that they might come from a different place and then they might be feeling a certain type of way, but it's not about you, and you should be confident in who you are no matter what.
Hi, I'm Karen. I just want to add something. So my kids are biracial. My husband is white. So, in my experience, it's a little bit different because I'm trying not to let them see kind of color. I don't know, I'm getting a little emotional right now. Just hearing everybody's stories, and it kind of makes me a little bit scared that, they're going to have to go through this. And I'm like, it's 2021, we're all basically the same. We're all a melting pot full of different colors and creeds and religions and everything like that. So, while everybody was talking, I was asking them, I said, have people asked you about your race? Have people, I know that they've gotten the question about the hair. And Miss Chester, it's not just white mothers that is about the hair. I know nothing about hair, especially this kind of hair. And I have 3 different types of curly hair to deal with, and I know nothing. So, I'm constantly asking them, especially now, are you, have you been asked these questions? I guess the first realization that was brought to my attention that they were biracial, pay no attention to them. They were probably about like 2 or 3 years old, and we're in line at Chick-fil-A, and one of my daughters asked me, she was like, "Mommy, are you brownish?" And I'm like, yeah, I guess I am. And she's like, okay, me too. And then another one of them was like, well, I'm not. And so that was kind of my first introduction. Okay, they're now learning about this. And so I kind of now have to navigate how I'm going to tell them that you are a mixed race. And so, it would be nice to know like how you guys are having this conversation with your children. And I'd love to have other people answer as well. Like, are Caucasians having this conversation with their children, like, okay, there are other people out there like you, and are, African Americans or Blacks. Are you guys having this conversation? Like, not everybody is like you. Like, is this conversation actually going on in other households?
Regarding when you were saying, have people like asked you what you are? when I was younger, and even still today, a lot of people ask me if I'm Hispanic. People will ask me, "Are you Hawaiian? Are you Greek? Are you from Greece? Are you from wherever?" And when I was younger, and because I was never, my mom never, said to me like, "Hey, people might think you're Hispanic." People would come up to me and say that, at the grocery store, cash register, at the mall, etc. And it kind of threw me off when I was younger because, I never had those conversations with my parents, either of them. So asking that question now, I guess as an adult, it doesn't, like, I don't mind, like, when I start my classes at the beginning of the year, I had a couple students say, "What are you?" Say, "Oh, well, I'm biracial, I'm black. My dad's black, my mom's white." And I don't care about it, but definitely something that, I mean, I don't have kids, but, when I do have kids, I would definitely try to have a conversation with them, kind of saying, yeah, like, you might get this question from somebody, and what's the best way to, to respond, don't, you don't want to kind of be standoffish about it, but also, like, what do you want to, have your kids say that will, make everyone comfortable, make everyone understanding, and, will make, the biracial child feel like that's who they are and that's it. And yeah, I don't have kids, so I can't really speak much to that, though. Maybe in like 10 years.
Hello, my name is Kimberly. I'm not putting my face so you can't see me, but I have the white coat on. I'm a child psychiatrist, and I just wanted to speak to my experience of working with biracial children, and particularly biracial children who may be underserved and don't have a lot of resources. It is extremely hard, um, particularly in school systems. There's a lot of trauma associated with, educational systems not educating kids about race and the social constructs and what they actually mean. And so I think that leads to a lot of victimization in schools. And oftentimes, parents who have biracial kids don't early start talking to their children about their identity. And so it makes it even harder. I actually grew up in a family of what I guess we would call full African Americans. It makes it seems silly to say full African Americans, but I have to say it in this context. But growing up in that family, very early we were taught about our blackhood, and that when we walked out into the world, people would see us a certain way. But we're beautiful, you're black, you're smart, you're great. And I think, and sometimes in a defensive way, in African American families, they teach their kids very early about their identity and what it means. And so there's a collective strength there. So it actually was a little bit challenging for me when I first started working with biracial kids and understanding that I didn't know how to approach the question of their identity because their home hadn't talked about it really, and this is from coming from good families, but they hadn't really had the conversation about the identity constructs that we have in society. I do want to say in the spirit of being inclusive, um, that Black mothers who have Black children, in a sense, do talk to their kids about identity in a very traumatic type of way. And so there's a lot of fear embedded in it. If I don't tell my child that they're Black, that they'll go out in society and they'll act a certain way and something bad will happen to them. So I don't think it's a good thing to teach your kids, per se, their identity in a racial social construct type of way. But I do think it's a good thing to tell kids about, you may go out into the world and the way that we see you is not the way other people see you, and they're not right, and we're right, a sort of kind of way. And so I really want to thank you guys. It really affected me to hear your story and to understand like what it's like to be a biracial individual. Um, I hope that we one day have a society where we don't have to talk about our race and just talk about our talents, our abilities, our strengths, what we bring. And I'm also really excited that this community is embracing diversity in a wonderful, beautiful way. So thank you for sharing your story. And I don't have a comment. I mean, I have a question. I just wanted to make that comment.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Cheryl Mack. I have a biracial kid. I am Filipino. My husband is white. So a couple of things that I can tell the parents based from experiences. always know the history and take time to educate your kid as young as she is or as young as he is, because only then that they will realize what race really is. Never be scared to talk about race ever since even your kid is as young as like able to understand what race is in simple language. Always talk about how pretty she is. I always tell my daughter, you are so lucky because you have two races other kids don't have. And you are not different. You are just extra beautiful. I always say that to build up the identity. So in the long run, there will be no identity crisis or any having a hard time accepting what race she has. And to our parents, take a very proactive stance. Just always don't presume our children are immune to anything. Because as a matter of fact, a lot of the people will say something about your kid because of being biracial. But if you prepare her or him as young as she is, I think that, or she or he is, they will be ready and accept the fact that, they won't even think about what race is because they're just unique as individual. So as we prepare them prepare them as young as they are in our house, in our family. So when they go out, it's nothing different. They are just uniquely created by God. That's why I always tell her, and in different looks, I always tell Dana, my daughter, she's 8th grader in Sacred Heart, you are just very different and unique. And that's what, every individual person are created uniquely. So again, it takes a while to teach and educate, but start as a very young kid, start at a very young age, and it will be a very productive outcome. And I think that Dana had never talked to me about being bullied or never talk about being different because I prepared her very well before she becomes a more mature person or basically comes out in the world that everybody can see something against her. She's ready to answer them. I also tell them that if she has to choose a race, I told him there is no option. You are both. You just have to put Asian and white. If there is a choice of others, check that and you can fill up that line and say Filipino American. That's what I always teach her. And she, ever since she has to fill up a form for high school applications, she always remember. I said, Dana, what is your race? Mommy, I know. It's Asian, it's Filipino and American. So she remembers and she knows it. So she is ready. So just get prepared, your kids. They are not immune. You have to get that proactive stance so they are ready to face the world to protect themselves.
Yeah, and I'd like to add a little bit, being a parent of a biracial child, I think what we tried to do was definitely have him around all different people and to be kind. That's the main thing. Make friends with people that are different than you. We never really put it on Trey what he was. We kind of let him figure that out himself, other than he knew his father was Black and that his mother was white, and that he had the best of both worlds, and that he was very lucky to have that. And also to be, caring for others. We are our brother's keepers, like it said. And I think Trey kind of grew up with that in mind, and he's always felt that way. He has many friends, all different cultures, and he's always been open to experience any kid, as long as that kid treated him right and was kind. And so that's kind of what you have to do as a parent. And there is going to be times when your kid comes home and says something that is you want to protect them. You don't want them to hear something bad like what he experienced in high school, which was his first time really seeing racism and feeling it. But it's going to happen. That's just life. And I think as long as you can love them all up, and that's what we try to do with all of our children at Sacred Heart, make them feel special, they will be fine. It's just like Chad said, it comes from the household, it comes from the parents, it comes from the foundation that we lay. And we all really have that responsibility for all of our kids, regardless of color.
There's a question in the chat. As a middle school teacher, I wondered if any of you might comment on any thoughts you feel would have helped you to hear from your teachers specifically that might have helped support you at that age.
That's a great question. You know, I don't know if it's anything specific. It's just feeling that support, because that's what I struggled with. As I said, when I wasn't at home, I kind of felt attacked on all sides. So I didn't have that support. I didn't have it from my classmates. I didn't have it from my teachers. I was called racial names by teachers and administrators at times. So I didn't have that. And so any sort of conversation about it, if you see something, if you see a kid that's being bullied or is that withdrawn, just having that conversation with them and encouraging them. Because oftentimes, like I said, when I would be at home, I would feel safe and I would feel good and I would feel empowered. But when I would go out, I wouldn't. So if there's any adult, if there's any authority figure that's willing to reach out and willing to talk, are you okay? Can we talk? You know, you're a great student. You're a great friend. Positive reinforcement. I think that's the biggest thing. I don't think there's any one thing. There's no magic sentence, no magic phrase. There's nothing that you could say that'll help. It's just having that dialogue and letting them know that they're supported. Because I don't care if it's biracial or if it's a black child, white child, Asian child, no matter what it is. I think particularly this year, because of what happened last year and how fragmented our society was, going back into it, they're going to feel alone. So having that open dialogue and letting them know that they're supported and making sure to have those conversations with the parents as well, because sometimes, as I said, I wouldn't talk about it at home. So making sure to have the conversation with the child, but also the parents to make sure they're supported there as well.
I also think conversations just like this and, our JEDI committee and everything like that, I'm not saying that, everyone was closed-minded, when I was in middle school. But some people just don't want to bring stuff up like this. Some teachers might have seen that me and some couple other, I can count on one hand, the other minority students, it's not they might not have been educated. What should I say? Is this too much? Is this too little? So I think maybe some of the teachers just, when I was in middle school, maybe were, just a little bit scared to kind of even, address anything. So, it wasn't addressed in middle school really, at all at a teacher level. But I feel like now that this country and the schools of Sacred Heart is definitely more diverse and understanding and educated, that we can have these conversations definitely with the middle school. If the younger grades, I'm not sure how it could be addressed. And I don't speak first grader, but just having conversations like this really helps. And it kind of it educates us, and it makes us comfortable. Like, imagine just kind of saying to someone you work with, hey, let's talk about biracial people. Like, having platforms like this helps, and it eases you into it. And now you'll be comfortable asking questions about being biracial or Black or Asian, or whatever it is. And once you start having these conversations more and more, it'll make it a lot easier. You just have to, stuff like this, like, it's kind of that first step, what I would say. So, and we're becoming more and more diverse, each year in America, which is awesome. So I'm hoping it'll get easier to talk about these things.
And I would also like to add, if you're a student, don't be afraid to ask questions. If you have questions about who you are, sometimes you feel that, you're on your own when it comes to the situations like that and finding who you are, but don't be afraid to ask your parents, ask your teachers, just ask about, the questions that you have if you're confused.
I'd also like to say, I think it would be good to point to people that have been through it, to point to Miss Chester and to point to Trey and myself, and not to hold up as a role model or anything, but to say, there are people that have been through this and have gotten through the other side and it's been successful. And if there is a student or a parent or anybody that has questions or just wants to talk, I am more than happy to talk to anybody to try to help them get them through, particularly with the young kids. I don't want my children, I don't want your children to have to go through the stuff that Trey and Miss Chester and myself went through. So I'm more than willing to talk to anybody, but just making sure to point to people that, hey, they've been there and they made it through to the other side.
I have one question. Do you think that, yeah, I know that there are some families, you guys seem to have had really supportive families, so I really am happy to hear that. But I know that in some biracial families, there is a lot of division around their identity, and it brings a lot of shame and distrust in general in your identity development. Can you speak to maybe those individuals who may be experiencing that and what they could do to, I guess, buffer themselves and kind of deal with that stressor of being rejected from a family member or a loved one because of their race?
I actually didn't mention this when I was originally speaking, but my dad, who is Black, he also tried to ignore that identity for even now in 2021. All of his family live in Baltimore City, and when he met my mom, and they had me and my younger sister, they moved out to Owings Mills, a suburb, so just far enough away from being fully ingrained into the city and that Black culture that his family was. So that definitely led to me rejecting the Black side of me, because my father rejected it as well. So that's why it was so tough for me. I'm not sure, Chad or Trey definitely have different experiences in terms of that, but I think that happens more so often than not, where you have that parent that either isn't involved or isn't interested in bringing that side of themselves to their child. My sister, my older sister just had a baby. My older sister, like I said, is my half sister, so she's white, and she had a baby with a Black man. And she said to me a few days ago, she said, it doesn't ever matter what happens between me and Kevin's father. I'm never going to keep him from either of us. I want him to experience both of the races in an equal way as possible. And I think that was really important. But yeah, my dad rejecting it was definitely something that was really hard for me. But I'm here, so it's definitely promising. But yeah, that was really hard.
So I can totally relate to what your dad went through. I grew up basically being the only bean in the rice bowl in every neighborhood that I lived in. So, I never identified with the Black side of things. My mom's family is from Baltimore City, so I kind of got made fun of from that side of the family, saying that I talked proper and was called an Oreo and everything like that, and I was like, whatever, I don't really care. But it definitely shapes who we are, the people that we are around. But I actually have a question for Chad. So when COVID first hit, and I don't want to get into like all the Black Lives Matter stuff, but I had to have a conversation with my son about what possibly could happen if he's ever out with his friends, and he may not get treated the same way as his friends, and it was a very uncomfortable conversation that I had to have, and I cried before and after I had to have that conversation with him. Was that something that your dad had to have with you, or did you go through a situation something like that?
Yes, yeah, it's a conversation that we had, and it's surrounding race, it's surrounding me as a person, with my father being a colonel, in the Army, me, being 6'7" and being a target, it's a conversation that we had. It was an important conversation. My son's too young right now, but we will have that conversation. And there have been times where I have been profiled. It happened in college. It happened here when I was when I was with the Ravens. It happened when I was in San Francisco with the 49ers. It's happened on multiple occasions. And the conversation that I had with my father is to be respectful and to comply and understand. And as upset as you are going to get at certain situations, if you handle it the right way, it's hard for someone else to not handle it the right way. Now, we've seen many examples sides, and hopefully, I feel that's in the minority. But those conversations are important, and to understand, I had those conversations. Look, if you get pulled over, you have your license out, you have both hands on the wheel, you comply. Yes, sir. You take your ticket and you move on. And those are things that I carry to this day, and whenever I get pulled over, which doesn't happen very often. My parents are on this call, so it doesn't happen very often. But when I get pulled over, I comply, and it doesn't matter, how old you are, what job you have, how much money you have. It doesn't matter anything. It's how you deal with that situation. And I understand what you're saying. When you say, I got the same thing when I was growing up. Well, from some people in the Black community, well, you don't talk Black. You don't act Black, you don't dress Black. Okay, well, what does that sound like? What does that look like? My grandfather was a Buffalo Soldier, fought for this country. My dad was the first Black football player at West Point. I am most definitely Black. I'm also most definitely white, but I'm not going to be as Dr. Gordon talked about, the social construct. I'm not going to be put into a social construct. I'm going to be me. I don't care if you accept what I am, as long as I accept what I am. And that is in everyday life, but especially as you talk about in those situations, those talks. And I'm going to be scared. And I'm not only going to have that with my son, I'm going to have that talk with my daughter, when she's out, and the way she may be viewed and the way she may be treated. So I'm thankful for those conversations that we had. I'm going to have those conversations, and it's all about respect and doing things the right way, because you can't control what the other person is doing in that interaction, but you can control you.
I feel like in some ways we perpetuate internalized racism. And even in this conversation now, I want to just kind of remind us that there is no Black culture or white culture. In American society, we talk about Black culture as a stereotypical way of how they represent themselves or how they speak in society. But we have to understand that if there's a social hierarchy, then those stereotypes are perpetuated to maintain a social hierarchy when there really isn't a one culture for one group of people. Because many people are, in the Black culture or the white culture, have similar experiences and are very alike in that way. I grew up in a segregated society in Monroe, Louisiana. However, Black people spoke the same way as white people, right? And so, but when I went to, high school, I was told by the white kids, why do you speak white? I'm like, I'm not speaking white. I'm just speaking like the people who I live with. This is how they speak. And so I do think that we sometimes, as Black people perpetuate internalized racism, and as white people, we perpetuate racism by buying into those stereotypes that one group is one way and another group is another way. If you go to certain parts of this country, particularly with the opioid crisis and addictions, you'll find out that many white communities are suffering the same way as urban Black communities in America, but you don't see that on the news, right? You only see those negative stereotypes of Black people. And so we have to do a better job of understanding that It is a poverty issue, it's an access issue, it's a structural issue, it's not an identity issue. It's a structural issue, and structural competency and cultural competency means that we don't perpetuate those stereotypes.
I would like to thank everyone for sharing their experiences. I know it's all very personal for everybody. As far as the hair goes, Dylan Steele's hair is the most beautiful hair I've ever seen. So maybe Miss Steele can give some tips to those mothers who need some help. But thank you very much, and we appreciate all your contributions.
Thank you.
Another thing that I can say and share, this is from the bottom of my heart. My daughter Dana had been in Sacred Heart for 10 years, ever since she was a pre-K, and she never ever say anything to me about being bullied or being asked why she is different among other kids. And I love that fact that she is living in an environment for 10 years that she was never stereotyped and make herself feel different. So I'm very proud of this school environment that where she is right now. And truthfully, I'm so proud of Sacred Heart that there is a very kind of very equal environment among kids in terms of races. And it's very reassuring to me as a parent that she is never questioned about her race. So thank you for having that kind of school environment, guys. Truthfully, I will be missing you when she graduates from Sacred Heart. Hopefully she will be in a great environment as well when she goes to high school. But thank you so much for 10 years. That is very great experience for us, her parents, and for her as well.
And I too would like to thank, just following up from the mom who just spoke, I'm an alum from Sacred Heart. And as Victoria was saying, as a student at Sacred Heart, I'm much older than Victoria, but the school was not as diverse as it is today. And as I have come back to Sacred Heart as a teacher and a parent, I am so proud of how diverse Sacred Heart School is. And each and every day as a first grade teacher, I teach my little ones that we're all created by God and we're all equal. And it doesn't matter the color of our skin and the texture of our hair, but God has made us, each and every one of us, so unique. And as my little ones, a few of them always ask to touch my hair and they love when I don't like to wear my hair down. And there are a few mornings that I actually do have my hair down. And a few of my little girls say, can I touch your hair? Can I touch your hair? Just because they realize that I'm much different than them and my hair texture is different than theirs. But again, I am so proud to be part of the Sacred Heart community, and just listening to Mr. Steele's story and Victoria and Trey's stories. It's just so heartwarming to return to the hall, to the hallways of Sacred Heart School, and to have my child, my own little girl, be part of such a unique Catholic community. And I've pretty much been off camera throughout the meeting tonight, but I've shed some tears just listening to the amazing stories of the families that have shared their own personal experiences of hardships, and my heart goes out to you. But I just want to let everyone know that as a new teacher at Sacred Heart, I will continue to make sure that all of our students know that God created us equally and we are all there together. So thank you for this time for me to share.
So I just wanted to take an opportunity to let you know a little bit about the JEDI committee and just acknowledge the folks. Not everyone was able to be on with us tonight, but the committee is made up of quite a few parents and a very diverse committee. and we've really come together. We want to serve our community in helping us have these conversations. It's really I'm thrilled with where we are right now versus where we were this time last year, because for all of us, bringing up the question or the topic of race was uncomfortable. And one of the goals that, we have as a committee is to get over it. I mean, in terms of our conversations, to be able to talk with one another, to normalize the conversations, because it's all about the kids, right? And if we can't do it, they won't be able to. And so, we using the word racism in the community was tough to say it the first time, to even bring that up as a topic of discussion was uncomfortable. But now, a year later, and I don't feel uncomfortable in any way, shape, or form talking about it. I see it as an opportunity, an avenue to a greater sense of community, and an avenue to help our kids to be able to have discussions. Our goal is to help our kids have a voice, and to help our kids get to a place where they're comfortable having these discussions about not just how they're similar, but how they're different. And we are blessed that we wrap it all in our gospel values, that we are a faith-based school, because that helps, I think, give them a starting point and a foundation of understanding. But the JEDI committee, I just want to let you know, we would like to do at least one more presentation this year. The first one was on race in the Catholic Church, and we'd like to do one more. And we would love to hear from you in terms of a topic that you would be interested in, so that we could do one more speaker series and continue this next year. And so I just want to say some thanks. I want to shout out to the members of the committee, Luciana Sumter, Yaneri Foster, Kathleen Russo Garcia, Kim Ringgold, Anna Trujillo, Laurel Enoch, Clarence Tunstall, Elisa Isabel, Greg Basinski, Sister Mary Beth Ham, Lauren Knoll, Georgianne Gurkovich, Chad and Wendy Steele, Victoria Chester, Kimberly Gordon, Carlene Service, and I'm sure I've left out a few, which is why I always try not to list names, but I just felt like I wanted to do that because we met for the first time in August, and I feel like it's just been such a it's been a really fruitful committee, and with a strong future. I know that, I'm retiring at the end of this year, but this is one of the things I said to Father Jerry, I really want to remain a part of this committee. This is just a passion, and it's growing, and it's going in the right direction. So hopefully I'll be allowed to do that. But is there anything else that anyone wants to say or ask before we sign off? I always feel responsible for being a timekeeper, and it's 8:24. So any final comments?
Can I share that what we're doing in Alveus right now has opened up some of those avenues for the children to have the conversations as well. So I can only speak for 2 of the 8th grade classes, but immediately upon beginning our lessons on diversity and how as a church there are differences, as humans, and really acknowledging those differences and talking about them, I immediately got positive feedback from a student. She says, we've never talked about this. Like, thank you for talking about this, because it's never been something that we talk about. And that was really powerful, because I thought, wow, like nobody really said much during the lesson, and we kind of tried to talk, but it was really the first time. So opportunities like that are coming to our children, which I think I'm excited as a parent, but I'm also excited as a teacher and administrator that opportunity is being brought to our kids. So not only can we have this discourse, but the children will have an opportunity to engage in that. And there are amazing lessons that came from, Ms. Russo Garcia was part of a committee over the summer, correct? And then you planned out all these really amazing lessons.
Well, thank you all. And again, send your suggestions forward. What's another topic? And if you have suggestions for us for speakers or whatever in any way, shape, or form related to this topic, we'd love to hear from you. And thank you for your time tonight. Thank you, Chad and Victoria and Trey, and for everyone present here tonight. So God bless, and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.